handkerchief. I said, I can't go to the bath start with a handkerchief. Oh yes you can. I said, okay. Today, yeah. Was it? Hey! Ken, what? Hanging up on the wall in this first house, the paella dish and the frying pan. Maybe just got an outdoor kitchen there. It could be. What time did you say we have to be there for? 10 past 3. Alright. It's 3 o'clock, you're going to have to run. I don't know, there's a couple of them. She's gone walking along that way. Right then everybody, now this is where Antonio is going to drop us off. We've got the gin distillery about 50 metres just behind us. He's going to be parking up now just in front of the ferry terminal building, which is just here in front. It says Estacio Maritima. So this is where we're going to meet. Behind us there now we can see the power station. That is where we get our electricity for the whole of Menorca, and also the docking area where all the cargo boats come in from the mainland of Spain to deliver all the produce which we have to import here to the islands. Now I'm going to point out, you see this individual island. This is called
Isla Pintor. This was formerly the British naval base. When the British were in Menorca in the 18th century, they made this their naval base. Nowadays it belongs to the Spanish Navy, and a lot of boys are sent here to do their national service. You can see the cannons that have been put around the outskirts just to add for decoration. These were taken from the fortress of San Felipe, the big fortress when it was destroyed by the Spanish at the end of the 18th century. And also you can see lots of anchors. These have been taken from various shipwrecks that have taken place here in the harbour of Mon. With lots of archways at the bottom of the building. That was formerly used as the ladies' changing room or the ladies' bathing room. Now many years ago it was thought so very unsightly for ladies to go around parading their bodies, and obviously then even bikinis hadn't been invented, so the ladies had to go in there, get changed, and then have direct access from the building and have a swim here in the harbour of Mon. And you can see the position, it's only a stone's throw away from the naval base, so very handily based there for the naval people to keep their eye on the ladies. Now all these residential houses that we can see now coming into view, these were some of the very first houses to have been built on the harbour side, and this side of the harbour is known as the Altra Banda. That's a Menorcan expression that means the other side. A lot of these residential houses actually belong to famous Spanish people, Spanish singers, actors, doctors, very famous people, professional people who have got their houses belonging to famous Spanish personalities. You may be wondering the length of the harbour. The length is approximately 6 kilometres long. The widest area is 920 metres wide. The depth in the very centre is approximately in depth. Sticking up out of the water, these platforms, these are the mussel beds. That's one of the main things which is cultivated here in the harbour of Mon, or the mussel beds. Also many years ago quite a lot of lobster used to be caught here in the harbour, but nowadays the majority of the lobster is actually caught on the northern coastline around the Bay of Fornells. Also here they catch the occasional squid, cuttlefish, sardines, and also the typically Menorcan seafood which is called escopiñas, which is actually is very similar to an oyster or a clam, and you've got to eat the escopiña directly off the shell, and you've got to eat them while this is between a clam and an oyster. It's typically Menorcan seafood which is actually cultivated here. Now get your cameras to the ready, because I'm going to point out to you now the very best example of the British colonial style of architecture, which is the red painted house. That is known as Nelson's house. That is where it is rumoured that Nelson had his passionate love affair with Lady Hamilton at the end of the 18th century. Now we do know that Nelson was here in Menorca in the year of 1799, but whether this passionate love affair ever took place here, nobody really knows. But that is what the legend is. Now when the British people were here, they called that building Golden Farm, and the Spanish have always called it San Antonio, naming it after the patron saint of Menorca. So it is the finest example of the colonial British art. Just coming into view here, I'm going to point out to you now the rented customs house, which is rented by Richard Branson, the multi-millionaire of the UK, with his record company and his airlines and whatever else. But this just goes to prove that money cannot buy everything. Take a look at the little house here with the slanting roof and the staircase going at the side. That is the property which is rented by Richard Branson. He can't buy it because it's a former customs house and it belongs to the town hall authorities of Mon. That is where he stays. He comes out to the island about 2 or 3 times a in the summer. In fact, his sister spends more time here than what he actually does. So that is the little house there. It's called Little Venice. Cemetery when the British were here in Menorca way back in the 18th century, but there's only actually one British person who is buried there. The rest actually belong to Americans, and we do get a lot of courtesy visits paid by the American Sixth Fleet. They actually come into the harbour. When they stop off here, they attend to the gardens and just check that everything's okay there. So it's mainly Americans who are actually buried there in the English cemetery. We're just approaching now the widest part of the harbour. This is where we get the distance of 920 metres by width, and this is taken from this urbanisation we can see in front of us here, which is known as the Beverly Hills of Menorca. But outside, the one just to the right, painted in a salmon colour, belongs to an Italian architect. Now just coming into view over in the distance there at the top of the headland, we can see a couple of buildings in a very isolated position. That is known here locally as Alcatraz. It's the Menorcan equivalent of Alcatraz. That is a fortress which was built in the reign of Isabel II of Spain. Now it's known here in Spain as La Mola, that is the nickname of the fortress, La Mola. And when the Spanish Civil War was taking place in Spain for 3 years, between the years of 1936 to 1939, that fortress had the reputation of being the strictest military prison anywhere in Spanish territory. It was a very fierce place, it was very gruesome, terrible conditions, and lots of very important politicians were taken there and held captive while the Spanish Civil War was taking place. Nowadays it's been converted into a normal army barracks, but most of the Spanish boys are sent there to do their national service. So that building was built, the fortress, at the beginning of the 19th century. Quarantine Island, but at the beginning of this century it was rented for 25 years by the Americans. And this is where the Americans had their first Mediterranean training base for people going in the American Navy. So it's a very important base. Nowadays it belongs to the Spanish, and it's where the Spanish have got their base for their submarine defences. The name of the island is called Isla Plana, that means flat island.